Well, we are already here. This is the final episode of Prehistoric Planet Ice Age, titled The Big Melt. As the name suggests, it's talking about the changing environment as the ice age is starting to warm up, and the fact that a lot of animals are kind of suffering because of that fact. It is kind of bittersweet that we're seeing the end of it because I had a great time overall. There was a lot of amazing stuff in this documentary. But now let's talk about the final part in this epic 5-part event. So we once again start off with some scimitar tooth cats who are struggling to find food. And so as a result, they're deciding to go after some woolly mammoths. It's not crazy to think about that. Sometimes elephants are attacked by lions. So it's not too crazy to think that some extinct cats would do something similar to that, especially if they're desperate. Their first attempt does fail, and one of the females is injured, unfortunately. We also get to see the stellar sea cow, which is this huge, sea cow that's related to modern day manatees. Love them here. It was great to see something like that depicted, especially with their huge size. One of them was beached and there was an attack that was attempted by a short-faced bear. Like the short-faced bear found one of them and decided that it was going to try to take a bite out of it, but its skin was too thick, and it led to the narration stating that the short-faced bear was basically just an annoyance. It was a fun little segment. I quite liked it. We get to see yet another Colombian mammoth, and this time, unfortunately, it gets trapped in a tar pit. If I were to guess, this was likely around the Los Angeles area, and I think it's meant to be like mostly a reference to La Brea, which is the tar pit that is located like right in the middle of Los Angeles, California, and has so many fossils of animals that were trapped there. It's really great to see something like that in this beautiful CGI, essentially. So the mammoth does pass on and is eventually found by a family of Smilodon, likely the North American species Smilodon fatalis. Their design is really cool because they're very distinct from the South American species that we've been seeing so much of. That species being Smilodon populator. Like their spots are completely different. I believe populator had more stripes, whereas this one has more spots, which is very cool. I really like that little attention to detail instead of just like reusing the same model. Now they're able to get to the mammoth because the temperature was cool enough to where it was safe to walk on the tar. But eventually, some dire wolves find them, and as that's happening, apparently the temperature was rising a little bit, and the mother gets stuck. So she's surrounded by dire wolves, which, by the way, I love their design, love their colors, very nice, very good, love it. And she's having to defend her cubs with one paw still stuck in the tar. So it's just a really tense moment. One of the cubs gets attacked by the direwolf, and it starts carrying it off. And that's when she gets the strength to pull out her paw and then just jump this direwolf, and then he gets stuck as that happens. And then the Smilodon family, they run off, and then the tar pit claims one more victim with that direwolf. Very, very intense scene. And again, more babies survive. Now that we're towards the end of this, I can say that there hasn't been a lot of, baby fatalities in this, which is, again, very different from the first 2 seasons of Prehistoric Planet. So that's interesting. That is interesting. That segment was really cool, though. It was great seeing the direwolf and a Cyandirus, and it was very cool to see Smilodon once again, this time a different species. We get to see more of Megaloceros. I loved Megaloceros's introduction here because it starts off with caribou, with reindeer, which that's great because we know those animals. Many of us see those animals. Heck, Christmas is next month, for Pete's sake. They're getting ready, I'm sure. But then, now that you have like a deer that you recognize on screen, the camera pans to an extinct deer, that being Megaloceros. And it was just so cool to see these animals right next to each other. The huge Megaloceros with its massive, like 12-foot long antlers, like 12 foot from one end to the other, these huge antlers in stark contrast to the reindeer. That was amazing. That was like a perfect way to do that and really helps put things into perspective. By the way, Megaloceros should definitely pull Santa's sleigh instead of reindeer. I believe that there was a Christmas movie, I think it was called Red One or something like that I think used Megaloceros. It's a good idea. The Megaloceros that we follow is kind of struggling in its environment. Most of its environment is being overtaken by forests. Again, a lot of these environmental changes is what's leading to the extinction of all of these animals that once existed. during like the height of this ice age. And it's being pursued by some European hyenas. It was great to see them again. The last time we saw them was in the first episode where they were in the cave, so they were kind of mostly shrouded in darkness for the most part. So it was great to see them in the light, and I like their design too. The Megaloceros jumps over the creek to a river to avoid the hyenas, and again, just very tense moments overall. I don't want to see my Megaloceros die. Megaloceros is my favorite deer, if that wasn't apparent yet. Later on, this is like we're jumping ahead a little bit. Later on, the hyenas manage to get across the river, and they continue pursuing the Megaloceros, who is forced into a forest. And they show why Megaloceros wasn't adapted for forest life, as its antlers were just too long, and it was getting stuck all over the place. And just as it seems like it's we're going to lose our Megaloceros, it sheds its antlers and is able to run off. So that was cool. Megaloceros lives. I'm happy about that. We also get to see the elephant bird, which is the largest bird to ever exist. Fantastic design here too. I love the extra wattles that it has, and I love the coloration that it sports overall. Its baby is hatching, and they're meant to go and meet up with a bunch of other elephant birds in like a watering hole. On the way, they get attacked by a giant fossa. This is Madagascar after all, and it seems like we might lose the baby, but once again, the baby is safe. It was really cool. It was really cool to see things like that, and this documentary was just filled with a lot of really cool things that we hardly ever get to see. And then this episode is wrapped up by the scimitar-toothed cats finally taking down a mammoth, one of the weaker members, which makes sense, and they survive another winter. As I mentioned, this episode is mainly highlighting like the fact that this is like the end. A lot of animals are on their last legs, and this rapidly changing environment is certainly not helping. And at the very bitter end, you see humans, which also didn't help with a lot of these animals. A lot of them were hunted, and because of the fact that they were already struggling from the changing environment, the introduction of humans certainly wouldn't help that either. So humans did make the cut into Prehistoric Planet Ice Age. I heard a lot of people were wondering about that. Were wondering if humans were going to make it. They don't have a huge role to play. We just get a quick shot of them as they're looking down a canyon at the herd of mammoths. That's pretty much like the extent of it. I think it's really cool that they were included. They were like humans were a huge part of environments overall, so I think it is pretty important to at least acknowledge the fact that they are present. And then the extra little bit of information that we get at the end is talking about how these animals went extinct and really gives us more details about that. Very fascinating stuff that I do recommend you check out. So was this a good ending? Yes, given the fact that the Ice Age, the way that the Ice Age played out, I feel like that was a fitting ending for it. Not that it really had to be an ending, so to speak. It could have just been its own self-contained thing, which in a lot of ways it was. But this show overall, I thought was really fun. I'm gonna have a full review up eventually. I don't know exactly when. That just kind of like talks about the show as a whole instead of the individual episodes. So keep an eye out for that. But this episode I thought was really great, and I really had a lot of fun with it. So this is our last individual episode. This is the last time that I'll be talking to you about an individual episode, unfortunately. It's really quite sad that it had to end so quickly. In fact, I recorded most of these videos in a single day, so it doesn't even feel like a lot of time has passed, unfortunately. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I certainly enjoyed the show. I enjoyed watching it. It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of amazing things that happened. And yeah, just stay tuned for the full review of the entire show. But that's pretty much all I have for this one. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have an awesome day.